Security in your web applications implemented in the backend, extremely critical, of course, for the overall security of your web applications. And that's why we created this video especially for you, explaining the features of roles and permissions with which you have precise control over this security. Roles, that is the group of permissions, and you will see how you can configure the different permissions bundled in roles in stellards.io and how you can assign these roles to different users at both the project level and also at table level. And I'll go over the best practices that are applicable when dealing with roles and permissions, and that is to begin with the role or the practice of the least privilege. That means that you will only assign the permissions that are really needed. So you start off with 0 permissions and you only add these permissions that a specific user really needs. You will see how you can set up, other than the default roles that are available, that you can set up your custom roles. I will also explain how you can avoid actually that some user gets a permission to override the multi-tenant configuration. That of course is extremely critical, that no one can unwantedly override the multi-tenant setting. And of course that also applies to generating application keys, authentication, access tokens, etc. That is completely under control and only the correct user can use these mechanisms. So let's dive into the stellards.io application where you can configure all these settings. And this is the place where everything is managed, the stellards.io website, where I access my account here under Manage Database, and here you see the overview of my project and all its settings, the project name, description, and its unique ID that you will need for the REST API is what you can find here on the main page. But in this video we are covering roles and permissions, so we access that here from the left menu, where you see already the 3 default roles that are always available. So whenever you create a new stellards.io account, you will find the admin, user and read-only roles. This here, the video demo role, is a custom role that was added to this specific project. You can at any time create a new role and of course manipulate or change the permissions within that role. If you would want to start off a predefined role and modify that role, you could duplicate this active role. So I'm now going to duplicate the video demo role, and by default it has inherited all the permissions of the video demo role, and you can separately change it for the new created role. Let's now go over all the permissions that you can find within a role, and let's do that by inspecting the admin role and its settings. First permission that we find is the update metadata of the project. That is disabled by default, meaning that you cannot update the metadata of the project via the REST API. You can of course do it through the stellards.io application. So the metadata is what you find here. So you have the project name and whether it's multi-tenant and whether you can also invite other users, and you can change these things through the settings button here. And so with this setting you can control whether that is possible via the REST API or not, when a user with that role will use the REST API. Deleting the project, that is also disabled by default, so the REST API will not be able to delete your entire project. What is enabled by default is creating new tables and also remove existing tables. What is also disabled by default in the admin role is ignoring the multi-tenant read behavior. That means when that permission would be enabled, that an admin user can read data belonging to other tenants. So when the multi-tenant behavior is enabled for a table or for the project, then normally a user can only access, see, modify the data that belongs to that user. When multi-tenant is enabled and that permission is enabled, you can actually see all data. Think about a company that has, for example, multiple salespersons. Each salesperson can see the sales that he did himself, but an admin user might have the ability to see all the sales that have been realized within the sales team of that company. That's a typical use case for that permission setting. What is also enabled by default is generating API keys. So the keys that allow you to use the REST API, that a user can do that, and also generate the client ID and secrets for an OAuth application access to your stellards.io account. Updating permissions in the project is enabled by default. An admin user can change and update the permissions. It's also typically something that you will not want to give that permission to other users. Inviting new users to the project is enabled. See all the users in a project, which you can find here in the left menu. So I'm an admin and I can of course see all the users and invite all new users to my project. And finally, also this common permission, which is revoking access to a specific user, also permitted by default for admin users. If we look at the regular users, you can see that all these permissions are not enabled by default, and the same applies of course for the read-only role. Let's have a look at the table permissions. So table permissions are the permissions that control what you can do at table level. And for an admin, he can see the table. That means when you do a REST API access to retrieve all tables within a project, then this user with this role will simply see all the tables in the project. He can also update the metadata of the table. So that is, if we go under tables and manage the information, then actually you can see here the multi-tenant setting. That is something that the admin user will be enabled to do, to change, for example, the multi-tenant behavior, to change the description of your table. Another permission at table level is updating the schema of the table. So that is the types of records or fields that you will find in your table, and you can find that here under manage. You can see all the fields, and here you can see that I can add a field, or here modify an existing field, so that permission is enabled at admin level. It is also something that applies to updating the schema through the REST API. And then the CRUD operations, so to speak, are enabled. So creating, deleting, update records and read records, all enabled for the admin user. For regular users, you can see that he can see the table, but he cannot modify the schema or the metadata of tables, and he can of course perform CRUD operations on tables. And here under read only, you can see that this role can see the tables and can read the records, but he cannot modify, update or delete any records in tables. And the video demo was a custom role that was created, where you see that CRUD operations are enabled, seeing tables is enabled, and you can see that the metadata and the schema cannot be modified by that role. Know that you can also modify the roles on a table level. So if we have a look at the bike rides table, and here we have a look at permissions, you can see all the roles that exist in my project, and you can see here that someone with the video demo role has no access at all. He cannot even see the bike rides table. That is something that allows you to control with a specific role what kind of tables you see or what kind of tables you can perform CRUD operations on. If I look at the video demos table, under permissions with the video demo role, here you can see that this table is visible. The schema and metadata cannot be modified, but CRUD operations can be performed. And in this way, you can create a role, assign that role to specific tables, use that role for specific tables to enable, when a user has a specific role, to only perform modifications on a specific table or not. And with that, you have full control over what the user can do, what permissions he has on the entire project, on specific tables. You can have as many roles as you want, and with that you can completely secure the backend for your applications, the StellarDS.io backend. Create a free StellarDS.io account and you can experiment and play with all these roles and permission settings yourself and see how you can really have fine-grained access to security, to permissions on your account. Enjoy! Stay tuned for upcoming videos. Don't forget to subscribe on this video channel or like this video, and you will be notified when we have new content for you.